Happy Thursday. Okay, so I just wanted to do this quick session. Okay, and the reason and the purpose for this particular session is to talk about the different types of divination from different cultures around the world, talk about the different practitioners that use these different types of divination and or readers. Some people call them readers, and also the source of knowledge where practitioners are obtaining their information from. I'm doing this particular session for two different purposes. One, just to kind of educate people, because a lot of people think certain things are evil and this is bad, and they lump everything all into the same category. They don't really have an understanding of what these different practices are. And two, for people that decide I actually do give readings, to get a reading from me, just so that you'll know, determine if I am the right reader for you or not, because I don't claim to know everything and be, do all be all. I'm not that, so I just kind of want to, educate one, and as far as the divination practices overall, and then as far as what I offer, so that you will know, what to expect if you get a reading from me, and also maybe decide that you may not want to get a reading from me. Okay, so those are the three topics. So first I want to start talking about the divination practices across the world. Okay, so divination is very old. I'll start with tarot. Tarot is very, very, very old. Some people say that it originated in ancient Egypt, and from there spread to other parts, like parts of Europe. Okay, some say that it originated in Italy and some France. Okay, but regardless of where it started, it is a known fact that tarot is a very, very old form of divination, with the use of not just cards, and I'll talk about, it is a form of cartomancy, but it's not the only form of cartomancy. Cartomancy being a type of divination. Tarot uses a structure. Each card means something. The symbols on the card mean something. Each card, and also how you place the cards, allows a reader to be able to determine what something means when they're doing a reading. So that's tarot. That's a form of cartomancy. But you also have different types of divination. Let's say casting lots. These are for my Bible readers. Casting lots. If you go into Revelation, you will see that the disciples, when they were looking for a replacement for Judas, it's said that they casted lots. Okay, casting lots is a form of divination. This is a form of throwing objects and determining based off of that, not sitting down with the council. Because keep in mind who I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the disciples. So this was at this point 11 disciples who could have convened and discussed it and talked about it and had a conversation, but that's not what happened. It is said that they casted lots in order to choose the replacement for Judas. That is a form of divination. It is similar to throwing bones in the root work conjure hoodoo tradition in the American South, where bones are thrown. Okay, so it's similar to that. These are objects that are being thrown, and they're based off of how they're placed and so forth. It's read. There's a meaning that is obtained from those particular objects. So that is a biblical reference to divination, because a lot of times people that are Christian, they'll say, oh, that's evil, doing readings, that's, any type of divination. And I always have to reply to people, do you understand that in the Bible, there is an example of casting lots? Well, just because something is done in the Bible is not correct. Well, I'm talking about disciples here. Okay, I'm not talking about, like, let's say, for instance, the Witch of Endor. I'm going to turn off this light here because it's a little bit too bright. I'm not speaking about the Witch of Endor. My window is open here, so it might be why I'm getting a lot of light here. The Witch of Endor. This is a medium that Saul went to in order to pull up the spirit of a prophet, because he knew that doom was coming for him, and he was trying to avert that. So he went to this medium and had her pull up the spirit of a prophet. So, that's a whole nother conversation to say, a medium or witch, because she was exiled. All of the what they considered witches in that time, in that area, were exiled. So Saul went to her, and she was actually afraid. She didn't even want to do it, because she was like, do you know what you're asking me to do? I'm not even supposed to, this is, pretty much this is why I'm exiled, people like me. Okay, so and this is, this is what she's saying to Saul. But anyway, he forced her to do this, and so she pulled up the spirit of a prophet. And so the spirit of the prophet, explained, told him what was going on, so forth and so on. So again, that's another conversation to say, a lot of people, oh, this is mediums and this is evil and this is evil, you know, that this particular medium was able to pull up the spirit of a prophet. This was just not any spirit that she pulled up. This was a spirit of a prophet, okay? Because when you're dealing with spirit, spirit doesn't have to cooperate. Okay, it's like a human being. We have free will. We don't, a lot of times we have this misconception of like dealing with the spirit. I've read certain things where people say, oh, when you're dealing with this particular spirit, you have to demand. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what type of spirit you're dealing with, where you can like come to the spirit in this type of authoritative type of spirit, where these are like, speaking of angels specific, I'll talk about angels, but there's other type of spirits as well. You're not coming to an angel in that type of tone and in that type of attitude to demand anything from an angel. So this is a misconception that they have to do our bidding, meaning when I say humans, regardless, that just because you approach a spirit or an angel and demand something, that is going to be done. That is not the case. The spirit does not have to do anyone's bidding, period. Okay, that is why in certain traditions there's offerings that's given. There's this different protocol and rituals that are done in order to get a spirit to do certain things, because just because you go to a spirit and you ask, oh, this, and you that doesn't mean that they're going to do it. So my points being, bringing up the example with this medium and the witch of Endor, and the fact that she was able to pull up the spirit of a prophet, that is a whole nother conversation that needs to be, discussed, as far as why did God allow that to occur. Okay, so that casting lots is a type of divination practice that was practiced in the Bible by the disciples. Okay, divination has been used for centuries, okay, for people to gain answers and insights into their life in different areas of their life. Okay, into the future, into things to come. Now, this is similar to prophecy. It's similar, and it could be put into the same bucket, because like with prophecy, it is determining and stating what is going to happen in the future. Okay, so it's similar with divination, but divination is almost like, I would relate it to a tool, the tool of obtaining information from the spirit. Where a prophecy, little bit different. It's not really prodding the spirit for anything. The spirit is actually coming out and saying, this is what's going to happen. It may not even be wanted, accepted, or asked for. Divination is typically, it is something that is done. It's something that is, we're demanding something from the spirit. We're asking, excuse me, answers from the spirit. Where in prophecy, the spirit is coming through. The spirit of God is saying, this is what I have to say it, period. Nobody asked for it. Nobody went to a prophet. No one went to a medium. Nobody went to this particular people. It's typically, this is prophesying things to come. This is saying, this is what's going to happen. I need you to say that this is what's going to happen. So when you're dealing with prophets, there, a lot of times they will come off as very extremely negative and pessimistic, because what they're doing is, a lot of times these are very serious issues that affect nations, and they're explaining that this is what's to come. So it could come off very negative, okay, and not wanting to be heard because of the fact of what's being said. And the example of this is in the Bible, with, there was a king, and God had stated, it was pretty much God's like, I'm going to do away with this king. And he was trying to entice him to go to war, because that was where he was going to meet his end. Okay, so this particular king had all kind of, they called him prophets. So again, that's why I said this, using the word prophet and prophecy, people in determining, oh, the prophet is a worker of, giving the word of God and so forth. And so people have to be careful of that, because in the Bible, with the king, they had his wise men or prophets around him, but there's this conversation that's going on up in heaven, and God is saying, who's going to entice this king to go to war? Speaking to the spirits, okay, or angels, angelic realm. And so it said that one of the angels or spirits said, I'll do it. I'll go and I'll put a lying spirit in the mouth of his prophets. So what's going on here? You see this you see God has a plan. And so in order to get this plan in action, he's using the angelic realm. Now, someone may say, well, why would God this? Because keep in mind what's going on here. What the spirit said to God, this is not a conversation between the devil and a spirit. There is something similar to this with Job, where there's a conversation with God and the devil. And the devil is saying, oh, the reason why he got, Job hasn't really denounced you and so forth, because look what you've done for you do all these things. You put this protection around him, but he'll curse your name if you stop doing this. So say God was like, well, test him. So again, this is the in this situation with Job. This is a conversation between the devil and God. Okay. In this example, what I'm talking about with this king, this is not a conversation with the devil and the spirit. This is a conversation with God and a spirit. And the spirit is telling God, I will get him to go to war. I'll entice him. I'll put a lying spirit in the mouth of his prophets. So the people that this particular king went to for counsel, what this spirit is saying is, I will put a spirit in their mouth that will cause them to lie to him. So they're telling him all of these things that are pleasing to him. This is the yes men, just telling him what he wants to hear. Oh, you're strong. You're tough. Nobody can defeat you. Go to war. Everybody that comes against you will be defeated. No one comes against this king and lives. Everybody that comes against this king dies. You're favored by God. God has his hand. This is all this. This is all this talk. But this is the spirit from heaven sent down to put these deceitful lips in the mouth of his prophets, because the goal was to get this king to war so he can meet his demise. Okay. So again, we have to be careful when we're talking about, prophecy, readers, divination, what's evil, what God does, what God doesn't do, angels, what type of angels do. Angels are good. They're fluffy. They're this, they're that. We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. Okay. We also have to understand that you can't avoid the plan of God using trickery. Okay. Because in this same example, what this king did, so what he did was he called, he had his prophets. The spirit put a lying spirit in the mouth of his prophets. But there was another prophet. This was not one of his. But he didn't like this one because he said, oh, he's negative. He always has something to say. Because someone was asking, well, isn't there another prophet in the land? And we don't see him here. How come you didn't call him? Well, he always has something negative to say. He's negative. He always has something bad about to say. He didn't like this particular prophet because this particular prophet told it like what it was. And a lot of times it would come off negative. And so he didn't want to hear that. So, finally they called him. And he did. He said something negative. Yeah, if you go to war, you're going to die. And he's upset. See, I told you. He always has something negative to say. And so put him in jail. He's pissed. He's mad. He's angry. Put him in jail, until I come back from war. And then he was like, fine, put me in jail. But the thing is, you're not coming back, period. I don't care if that's what he's saying to him. I don't care if you put me in jail or not. You're not going to come back. So he's pissed. So then now he's resorting to trickery. So what he did is one of his servants, he had dressed up like him when they entered the battle, thinking that if the enemy saw this person dress as him, if they would go after the servant instead of going after the king, because they would see that he wasn't dressed like a king. His servant was dressed like him, using trickery. But again, this was coming down from heaven. This was not coming from his enemies, that his enemies are trying to ruin him and kill him. This was coming down from heaven. And what heaven had said, and what this prophet had said and told him, if you go to war, you're going to meet your demise. Now, instead of resorting to trickery, he could have not went. And he also could have inquired and say, okay, well, what is this? Why is this on my head? What's going on in the spirit realm, to try to avoid it versus resorting to trickery? So like what was said, when he went to war, he met his demise, even though he was dressed as his servant. It was a stray arrow. a stray arrow. This arrow wasn't even directly aimed at him. It was a stray arrow that hit him and killed him. Okay, so circling back around to talk about the different divination practices, because now I kind of jumped ahead and start talking about the source of knowledge where practitioners are getting their information from. Okay, the source, which is important. Okay, so I kind of jumped ahead, but let me go back and backtrack and talk about, again, there's different types of divination. There's casting lots, you have tarot, you have I Ching. You have I Ching is from the Asian culture. You have Babalaos use them. Delagoon, these are shells where people throw shells, and the placement of these particular shells, their stories. It's very intricate system in West African and Yoruba tradition. Ifa, which is practiced in Cuba, a form of it is practiced in Cuba, a form of it is practiced in Brazil. Okay, so that is a form of divination, and it's based off of, again, how the shells are falling, and based off of how they are falling, there are stories that are attributed to that, and a person that's, that is a practitioner and understands that can tell a person what's happening, what's going on, based off of this reading of the shells. So that is a form of divination that originates in West Africa. Okay, and there are still people that practice that today. There is tea leaf reading, where people read tea leaves. They'll have the person that they're doing the reading for drink a cup of tea. This is loose leaf tea, and there's some left at the bottom of the cup. And based off of how the leaves are, they're when a practitioner is looking at them, they're looking like something, and the way that whatever they're looking like, these symbols mean something. Okay, so that's a very old practice as well. Tea leaf reading. You had tea houses back in our country, a long time ago, where that was what was done there. They couldn't charge for readings; it was illegal, but they would charge for tea, and they would do tea. It was a way for them to be able to do the tea, the readings. Okay, this is a very old form of divination as well. Tea leaf reading. Okay, and this originates in Europe. So those are just some of the practices around the world of different types of divination. You can also go into like astrology. Um, and I want to touch on that a little bit, because I'm going to go more into this in the future. Like astrology, we're reading the placement of the planets and so forth and so on. And the zodiac, there's different houses. Now, haven't seen this, and so I'm going to be doing some research on this, and I'll be talking more about this. Now, in the American South, when you had the slaves that escaped for freedom, okay, if you understand the story, when the slaves were escaping for freedom, they were told to follow the North Star. Okay, well, how did they know that this was going to lead them to the land of freedom? Where did they get this from? Okay, where is this knowledge obtained from? Because this is really astrology. This is really looking at the stars. Also, you have to keep in mind, people don't talk about this when they talk about slaves escaping to freedom. They don't talk about this, but it's a person that's escaping to freedom. First of all, they would have to know the proper timing of when to escape. Because if you escape during winter, or the beginning, because these trips take a long time. So if you escape at a time and then winter sets in, you're going to freeze to death, because we're talking about like the South, there's winters in the South, and you're going up north, there's winter. So astrology, is very simple to say, just follow the North Star. It's like, oh, these slaves are following the North Star. But when you really probably, and I would be doing more research on, dig up under it, there was an understanding of astrology that was handed down, and that were explained to them in order to be able to navigate and to get themselves to freedom. So again, astrology is a form of divination as well, because you can see events before they occur based off of knowing the placement of the moon, the sun, the planets, so forth and so on. Okay. So that's just kind of some basics. Now, let me now go into the source of knowledge, where practitioners are getting the information from. So I spoke about tarot. Now, tarot is typically believed that a person is not really tapping into any type of spirit. They're not tapping into the spirit realm, that it's really just the placement of the cards, laying them out, and understanding what the different cards mean. There's meaning for these different cards. Okay, so that's what most people believe about tarot. I always believe that if you're dealing with any type of spiritual tool, when you're learning, determining what this is going to happen, what this means, that to me is spirit. You're connecting to the spirit. So that's my belief, that that's a spiritual tool. But others don't. Some, there's different opinions about that. So that's that. Now, then if you jump to casting lots, that is a form, again, that was used in the Bible, but also a form of that was used in the American South with casting bones. Okay. And that is, again, tapping into a spirits. Now, usually this is dealing with usually practitioners of hoodoo, conjure, and root work. This originates in the American South. Use this particular tool. So when determining where the source of knowledge is, you would have to know what the practitioner is working with, because typically in hoodoo is typically not connected to deities. Like in Santeria, Candomblé, voodoo, Haitian voodoo, and Louisiana voodoo, these are connected to this, that system, spiritual system is connected to deities, saints, orishas. Hoodoo, the workers, they're dealing with different spirits. They're dealing with Native American spirits. You have different types of hoodoo, because you have in the South, you have people with ancestry from Europe. You also have people from ancestry from Africa. Now you have these little, beliefs that this is the African hoodoo was handed down from African slaves to their descendants. For the most part, yes, but we have to understand the landmass of the South, and the people from the South. The people from the South are not just one, it's a melting pot. I'll give myself as an example. I have ancestry. My people come from the South. Still, majority of my family live in the South, southern parts of the United States. So when I've done my genealogy through ancestry.com, my DNA, family tree, so forth and so on. Working on the other half now, but know that know both sides. The ancestry is Native American, West African, and Scottish, European. So that's me, my people coming from the South, this melting pot. So now when you're talking about hoodoo workers and you say that they're getting this from, African descendants, you also have practitioners of traditional Southern, and some want to let them conjure, they call it that. I don't want to go there. That's a whole nother topic. But what I'm saying is the source is different, because the ancestry, if a person is typically with hoodoo, they're not connecting to deities, they're connecting to their ancestors. So if a person has Native American ancestry and they're doing divination and they're casting bones and they're connecting to the spirit, typically they will be tapping into their ancestors. Their ancestors, and the predominant ones that are working with them are Native American, then they're tapping into the Native American spirit. Okay. If their ancestors that are walking with them that are predominant in their life are Scottish, then that's what they're tapping into. Then you dig down in them. Well, what spirits are that? The Scottish, you're dealing with Celtic, you're dealing with Fae, okay? These fairy Fae, okay? Native American spirits, if you're dealing with African spirits, you may be dealing with Orisha, or you may be dealing with Loa. So it depends. If you're dealing with a hoodoo worker, even if you're dealing with another, another spiritual worker, not just tarot, because again, tarot readers, you don't necessarily have to be going through a deity. I'm talking about a source of knowledge. The source of knowledge is the tarot itself, that structure, that system. Now, when you're dealing with other types of divination, like tools, casting lots, casting bones in the South, that the way that the bones are laying, this is spirit. Okay, so it's tapping into a source, and a lot of times it's tapping into the source that the individual, that the practitioner is connected to, and that could depend on what practitioner you're dealing with. Okay. Now, if you're dealing with Ifa, Santeria, Candomblé, and somebody's working with the Delegun, casting shells, then they're tapping into Orisha. They're tapping into that source of knowledge, or I'm gonna say his name now, Orunmila, who is a prophet in the Ifa tradition. Okay. So that's typically who a practitioner that is working with the De Lagoon, what source of knowledge they're pulling from. So again, when I said they're casting the shells and they're laying a certain way, they have to understand the stories and the tradition of the Yoruba to be able to be a knowledgeable and real practitioner of the Delegun. You have to know the culture. You would also, I would go to say, to be really, you have to learn the language in order to understand the what they're called Oriki, and to understand these different stories and what this means and so forth and so on. Even chants, because you have to invoke the spirit. You have to. That's a whole nother thing. And again, I don't do the Delegun, so I'm not an expert at that. This is a basic, discussion on the source of knowledge. So different practitioners, they're not all tapping in. So people say, "Oh, that's coming from the devil." Okay, be careful with that. Okay, because everyone is not tapping into the same thing. Now let's jump now to, let's say, like angel cards, and I'm gonna speak on Doreen Virtue, because she actually was very popular in the angel cards and angel readings, and then now has denounced it to say that it's something evil. Now, we have to make a distinction between what she was working with, what angel she was working with, and what other angels everyone else is working with. To say it all is evil, maybe, well, we have to be clear on what an angel is. You have fallen angels. And just because they have fallen, people may say, well, actually, after they fell, they're demons. Okay, we can call them that, but they're still angels. It's just like a human being. I'm always human. I can change my hair. I could wear a wig, a purple wig today, a blonde one tomorrow, but I'm still human. I can act out in all types of ways. I can start barking. I could crawl on the floor and start barking like a dog, but I'm still a human being. Okay. That's what I was created to be. I was created as that. I didn't create myself. I was created as a human being, just like the angel. The angel did not create itself. It was created as an angel. And if it wants to start acting outside of the auspices and the law of God, it is still an angel. So when a person is saying that they're doing angel readings, oh, this is evil and this is so forth, well, maybe it's the angels that you are working with. Okay. Now, if you're working, excuse me, sweetie, give me a second. If you're working, let's say, with Archangel Michael, Uriel, Raphael, Gabriel, give me a second, sweetie. Okay, give me a second, sweetie. If you are working with these particular, is this evil? Is Michael evil? Is Gabrielle evil? And then let me also say this, to say, well, people say, well, that's not who you're working with. Those are deceiving spirits, like you just talked about with the king. There's a way to discern what type of spirit you're working with, type of angel. That's why, again, a person has to know what they're dealing with and how to actually work the tools properly and work with the spirit. If you're dealing with a tool that actually relies on the spirit, you have to be able to discern and understand what you're working with. Okay. Because dealing with like certain angels, angel like Michael and Gabriel and the tools, and some will say, well, God would never allow his angels to speak through cards. Really? Let's stop saying what God will and will not do. Because if a Bible, let's talk, because I'm talking to these are Christians I'm talking to when I say this, because I already know the statements and the conversations that happen. God would never allow an angel to come through some cards and speak, because that it says in the Bible, do not do sorcery, do that. What is that? What is sorcery? And I'll talk about that maybe in this session, maybe in the next. But let's go to this particular scripture in the Bible to debunk that myth about what God will speak through. Remember, what was his name? I can't think of his name, but the king came to him. I think it was a king, but anyways, this ruler, I believe, someone in power came to him. He was, I don't know if he called himself a prophet. Let's call him a spiritual worker, to curse the Jews. Okay, because he wanted to curse the Jews, and so he knew that this man had the power to do that. So this man was on his way on his donkey to go to do just that. And the donkey stopped and it wouldn't go any further. And so the man started hitting the donkey. And the donkey, it says that God spoke through, I believe it was God's angel, if I'm not mistaken, spoke, let's say the spirit of God, because it was God, the spirit, the angel for reference, but spoke through the donkey, because this spiritual worker was hitting the donkey, like he was trying to get the donkey to move, because he was on his way to go fulfill this request. And the donkey stopped. There was something in the way, there was an angel in the way that the donkey could see, but this spiritual worker, this particular person, could not see it. And so the donkey wouldn't move. And so it was hidden. And then finally the donkey, the spirit spoke through the donkey and told him about itself. Okay. So when people say God ain't gonna speak through that, fine. The message, the donkey had stopped, and the spirit worker was trying to get the donkey to keep moving. But the thing was, God was trying to stop this action. Like, you're not gonna curse my people, okay? And so he's trying to stop the donkey, but the person was trying to still keep the donkey going, and so the donkey spoke. Now, where do we know a donkey speaking? I'm talking to Bible workers, a Bible reader, excuse me, not those that don't believe in it, because that's like, oh, that's just fictitious. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Bible readers that will say God will never allow his angels to come to someone and speak through some cars. Really? He spoke through a donkey. And let's be clear. Let's be clear on what we call a donkey. Let's be clear. Let's just be blunt with it. He spoke through an ass. He spoke through an ass, so he won't. Okay, so let's stop playing God in the sense where we always say what God will and will not do, because it has been shown over and over again that God will do things that boggles people's minds and make people step back. That was the root cause of the death of Jesus. Again, I'm speaking to to Christians and people that believe this, Bible readers. That was the root cause and the reason why Jesus Christ was crucified, because those in power, and these, keep in mind who was in power at this time, it was the religious people. It was the religious people. So when I say people in power, I'm not talking about like today, that the people with all the money, and they not be, today our leaders don't have to necessarily, be religious, but I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about that then. The people in power were the religious people. These were the religious rulers. These are the people that put Jesus Christ to death. Let's be clear. Why did they put Jesus Christ to death? Because they were saying you are blaspheming. The things that you are saying are not in line with the scripture. You're saying that you're God. You're saying these things. You have to stop this. You can't do this, is what they're saying. They're pissed. Because think about Paul that wrote the most of if I'm not mistaken, the most part of the New Testament. He was that. He was that. He was he a Pharisee? We've got the Pharisee and the Sadducees. I don't know which one he was, but he said that at one point. And he professed to being that, because that's what his lineage was. And he said that. He finally got tired of the folks, always bragging. He's like, you're so impressed with these people that have this and this title. And he had to break it down to that. I am that. I have all of these things that these people say that you love, that these people are touting. I am. What did he tell these people? I think he said a Sadducee or Pharisee, so I might get him in. He said, I am I am. I don't know if he spoke in the present tense, because keep in mind, he still was this. This stuff was it. This was his lineage. And he had the learning. He had the schooling. He had all of these things. He might not have used it, but he had it. So he finally got tired of the folks and was like, I am a Pharisee of the Pharisee. He said, let me speak foolishly like you, since you like it. Let me speak foolishly like you, because he called this boasting foolish. And he said, let me speak foolishly like you. I am a Pharisee of the Pharisee. And he started telling him about his lineage. He started telling him about his learning, his education, these institutions he went to. He said, I am that. But he said, I've counted as nothing. Okay, so this particular person was that. He was a Pharisee. He wrote the most of the New Testament. But these people are the people. Remember, he was crucified. That's how he got converted, because the spirit of Jesus knocked him off of his horse, physical horse, the high horse, but his horse, and was like, why are you crucifying me? And he didn't know what this voice was coming from, with this spirit. He was like, well, wait a minute, what are you doing? Because Paul was killing Christians. He was putting them to death. He was on this campaign that these people were on that killed Jesus. Let's keep in mind what's going on here. Okay, when people say God wouldn't do that, that was the same rhetoric that crucified Jesus. But of course, this was his destiny. So this is nothing like, oh my God, of course it's a terrible act, but this had to happen. He knew that, because he even said when he was dying, he's like, I can call. I forgot how many angels he said that he could call and stop this right now. but he was saying that this is my destiny. I'm allowing this to happen. So let's be clear and let's be careful on bunching stuff. This is sorcery. This is this. This is this. God won't do this. God won't do this. This was the same language that people, this is the main problem with Jesus. The main. That Jesus won't, God wouldn't do this. We're feeding, you're working on the Sabbath because he's feeding, healing folks. And, it's like, really? He's healing people and he's curing people. And it's like, oh my God, like you can't do that on Sunday. And so he had to tell him, like, look, you will go out here and save your donkey on the work. To have to like put your mind in order. Put your priorities right on what's important. And he said, I'm healing people. I'm curing people. But you're talking about these laws and these things. He's like, I am that. I have fulfilled it. Okay. So we have to stop. And I'm going off another tangent because I'm actually combining this with the previous session I did, but I never got to finish it because I had a reading that came through. But anyways, combining that session to say we have to stop determining we are not God. We're not God. And we can't say what God is going to use. And when someone says something, oh, well, that's evil. And that says, well, that was evil for you. And maybe that was what you were working with, what type of angels you were working with. Because angels, again, this is a class of beings. And some have fallen. If you've read the book of Enoch, which is not in the King James Version of the Bible, it's not in the NIV, okay? It is in, I believe it's in the Ethiopian Bible, their Bible, Orthodox Bible, the book of Enoch. And this book is speaking of these angelic beings, this relationship with the human. I mean, a lot. I didn't read all of it, listened to some of it, videos, but I didn't read all of it. It's a lot. And it speaks about these angels and their interaction with humans and all this that's going on. Okay. So that's not in the King James Version. It's not in the NIV, which is really what people in the United States read. So we don't have the knowledge of that. So we will talk about things that we don't even know of. We have not done the study on it. We don't know about it. We don't have the understanding, even the basic understanding of it. And so we will say that this is not happening. But I'm going to wrap this up to say this. What is the function of an angel? What is the function of an angel? An angel is a messenger of God. He's a messenger of God, as a messenger of God. And I'm of the Catholic belief system meaning that I believe that everyone has a guardian angel. That being said, some people are not active. They are not aware of them. They're not, they're not in tune to their spirituality, but they still have issues. They still have questions. They still seek direction. And if they reach out to someone, say, for instance, a person like me that does angel readings, you may not be aware of your angel. Okay. Now, if I'm getting messages from angels because I'm seeking it, and they give messages, okay, would that not be a function of what an angel does? An angel is a messenger of God. An angel gives messages. That is the function of an angel. But an angel, if someone has not connected to their angel or have not connected spiritually, but is seeking guidance, but if that is the person that is giving the information is the conduit that the message is coming through to be given to the person. Okay. So to say God wouldn't do that or that's wrong, that is a person's opinion. But, and I'm touching on something else in this particular topic to speak on that subject of, well, this God wouldn't do this and he wouldn't do this, because I'm talking about this pool of knowledge that is available, okay, in the spirit realm. Think of, let's say, for instance, the United States. And let's say I'm in Africa. And I wanted to know something that was going on in the United States. There is various sources I could go to for that information, okay? I can go to a church. I can go to someone let's speak about where I'm the source, okay? I can go to someone at a church. I can go to someone at a police office. I can go to someone who is a homeless person on the street. I can go to a drug dealer. I can go to an axe murderer. I can go to a nun. I can go to a, you know, a school teacher. I can go to just a stay-at-home mom. Now, depending on, let's say I'm in Africa and I'm looking for information about America, another country, different languages spoken here, there's different customs here. But even that, depending on who I go to for that knowledge, I might get something different, or I might get a different take on it. Okay. So let's be clear. When I'm saying the pool of knowledge, I'm speaking of the spirit. In the spirit, there are different types of spirits. Okay. So obtaining the information, who a person is obtaining the information to, yes, some people are going to evil spirits. Yes. Let's be very clear. Some people will even tell you that, their work, what they're working, what spirits that they're working with. They'll tell you, they have no shame in it. They'll say, I'm working with disenchanted spirits. They will say, I'm not saying that this is what I'm doing, but I'm saying that these people will say that I am working, in their words, with a slave, an old slave that died, that was hung. And this person is very powerful and gets done speedily. But is this spirit a little angry? Oh, yeah. Is this spirit in between worlds? Oh, yeah. Is this spirit destructive? Oh, yeah. So, but that is the source that the person is using to obtain the information. Now, the spiritual work, that's a whole another session that I'll talk about. So we have to be clear. Yes, some of it could be coming from what we consider to be an evil source, depending on, a demon, a fallen angel, a disenchanted spirit, a spirit that is pissed, an old slave that got hung by their master, and they're pissed, they're mad. A Native American spirit that is very powerful, that a person may be going to for a source of knowledge. They know the land. Speaking of root work. Okay. So again, we have to understand the pool of knowledge. Because someone is saying that they're giving readings and doing divination does not mean that everyone is obtaining. Not everyone is using the same tools. Not everyone has the same spiritual or religious belief system. Some have none, some have some, and that means that there are ethics in place to say this is how you do this. You have to follow that. Some do not. There is nothing like that. But some are dealing with they have different sources where they're obtaining that information. And depending on where they're obtaining that information, that is what a person should judge. And if a person wants to know, some people don't want to know. It's like, I just want the information. I don't care where you get it from. I don't care where you get it from. I don't care if you get it from a disenchanted slave spirit. I don't care if you get it from an old slave master. I don't care where you get it from. I just want the information. Some don't care. Now, for those that do care, then you would have to ask a person, well, what is your practice? What tool are you using? And with that tool, what spirit or spirits are you working with, or what spiritual tradition are you? Because some people's spiritual tradition determines what tools they use. Okay, so again, that is the divination practices across the world, the tools, debunking the myth that divination did not occur in the Bible. Casting lots did. Look at Revelation. Okay, and look at how the disciples picked the replacement for Judas. The practitioners, different types of practitioners. There are different types. You have your tarot readers, you have your root workers, you have your hoodoo practitioners, you have your conjure workers. These are different types of works, different types of spiritual workers. And a lot of times, again, this will determine the tools that they use. Also, since I'm speaking of root work, hoodoo workers and conjure, which originates in the American South, I talked about cartomancy. In the American South, there's also a form of cartomancy using a regular deck of playing cards. So practitioners in the southern parts of the United States, some still do their readings that way. They still use playing cards. Not the tarot. It's not the tarot. It is just playing cards, like you're playing spades or playing, what is it? These different types of card games. It's a regular. So that's a form of cartomancy. So again, you have your divination, forms of divination tools, practitioners, and also you have your source of knowledge that different practitioners are using.